Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network. Let's do this. Recapping day one of the joint practices with the Colts and Trevor Sikkema coming up from PFF. Let's go.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's Wednesday, everybody, August 17th into Thursday, August 18th. Another edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Matt Dery with you. Thank you for watching, listening, and paying attention to what we bring you each and every day right here on Locked On Lions. We appreciate you making us your first listen each and every day. We are back from vacation. We did a show last night following Hard Knocks, episode 2. And back again today with another episode. We'll take you all through this week. Lions are in Indianapolis for joint practices with the Colts. We've got an update on what took place today with some winners, some losers, and our good friend Trevor Sikkema, formerly of the Locked On Podcast Network, now with Pro Football Focus, going to join us to talk about the first couple of weeks of training camp and the Lions coming up today momentarily here on the program. Again, thanks for making us your first listen. You can follow us on Twitter at Dery Speaks, D-E-R-Y Speaks, at Locked On Lions on Twitter. Also, the Matt Dery Facebook fan page, and we are on YouTube. Please watch the show each and every day on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that subscribe button, comment, and we appreciate you guys checking us out on the video side as well. Again, I mentioned Lions are in beautiful Westfield, Indiana for training camp for 2 days doing joint practices with the Colts. And what was ironic about today was the Colts have a rule, I guess, no live tweeting during practice, so there's a certain amount of time that you could get updates. So none of the reporters, whether it's our buddy Nate Atkins, who covers the Colts, or anybody on the Indy side, Jake Arthur from Locked On Colts, who we're going to have on the show on Friday, or any of the Lions writers were allowed to tweet out updates on what was going on. John Macaroon from the Detroit Sports Podcast and SI, he tweeted out today that in fact, the Pat McAfee show was live on YouTube and live on Mad Dog Sports Radio right there from the practice field. So I turned this on for a second, and they got cameras showing all the 7-on-7 stuff, the one-on-ones. McAfee's commenting on players, and you could see it. I mean, they literally put Pat McAfee 10 feet from the sideline. He was right there in a tent. The field was, I've never seen any broadcast ever be so close before. So I checked some of that out today, and I hit up some of my buddies that were there, talked to a couple of fans who were there. There was a lot of Lions fans that made the trip to get my research done for today. First and foremost, on the injury front, let's get to this. Halapoulivaati Vaitai left yesterday's practice, or Monday's practice, with an injury, was back today, and was out there with the first-team offensive line. That's huge. He's been an underrated part of that O-line now for a couple of years. And they finally found him a home at right guard. Of course, Bob Quinn signed him as a tackle, but he's been pretty good. So he was back today. That's the good news on the injury front. The bad news is that Devin Funchess, who, of course, caught a touchdown pass on Friday night in the preseason opener against the Falcons, left a practice today with help from the trainers with an apparent right shoulder injury. Landed funny on his shoulder, fumbled the football. And we'll see how long Devin Funchess is out, but the tight end is trying to make the team. And Brock Wright is at a strong camp. TJ Hawkinson, is going to be there. So we'll see how long Devin Funchess is out. As far as practice today, all right, it's been apparent from Jump Street that the Colts are in love with their rookie wide receiver, Alec Pierce. And he's getting reps with the first team, and they need him. And today, Alec Pierce, along with Michael Pittman, took Amani Oruwariye and Jeff Okudah to the woodshed. All reports, everybody I've talked to said those kids dominated the Lions cornerbacks. And you can recall a couple of weeks ago when all the buzz was, man, maybe Will Harris has a chance to beat out Jeffrey Okudah. And Dan Campbell made it a point after Friday's game to say, oh, no, Okudah, we liked what we saw. Today, he got his ass kicked by Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman. And then, to make it worse, a little scrum going on at one point. These joint practices are going to be a little pushing and shoving. Okudah goes in there and totally sideswipes Pittman in a bit of a cheap shot move. Not a good day today for Jeffrey Okudah in Indy at joint practice number 1. If you watched any of the Pat McAfee show, they were showing the Colts offense, the one-on-ones against the Lions defense, and the Lions couldn't stop them. Again, when the Lions got the ball, trust me, and I will tell you this, the Lions offense did just fine. Just fine. Kirby Joseph, Lions rookie safety, is starting to come on. Had an interception today against Nick Foles. The Colts, a backup quarterback, reunited with Frank Reich. Of course, they were in Philly together for the Philly special and everything else. Kirby Joseph is one that had a good day today. Rookie to watch, and certainly somebody that the Lions like a lot out of Illinois. The punt god, Jack Fox, did not disappoint today in special teams drills. I talked to a couple of people that were there, Lions fans that sat in the stands, and I said, who's the best player on the field today for the Lions? And they said Jack Fox. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but he kicked the ball and punted the ball very well today. Offensively, the Lions did very, very well. It started off slow, apparently, but Jared Goff, 8 out of 10 in the 11-on-11 drills, couple of touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown was toasting some of the Colts defensive backs. The sun god is coming on, and he's playing with a chip on his shoulder again. I think he hears some of the whispers about people saying he can't do 90 and 900 again. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to try to prove a lot of people wrong. We saw on Hard Knocks the other night how much he works out, how much his dad as a former bodybuilder helps him. And this is a dude that does not just want to rest on his laurels or even be a number 2 receiver to DJ Chark or just be number 3 receiver to Chark and Jamison Williams when J-Mo comes back. Amon-Ra St. Brown is motivated and had a very good practice session today. Sounds like the Lions did a lot of misdirection and different things offensively that was confusing the Colts defense. That's a great sign. Love hearing that Ben Johnson and the Lions offense and Dan Campbell threw some new wrinkles today in at the Colts that they did not respond with. So again, we're going to talk to Jake Arthur, the host of Locked On Colts, on Friday on the show to kind of recap these 2 days of joint practices. The teams will be off on Friday and then get ready for the Saturday afternoon 1:00 game at the Big Oil Drum there in downtown Indianapolis. There's not a better downtown to be hosting a big event than Indy. Indy is fantastic at that. Not that this preseason game is that big, but you get my drift. The great Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus is coming up next. Want to remind you, got to download a new app, folks, to get you the ultimate sports betting and fantasy experience, and that is the Elias Game Plan app. It's almost the start of the NFL season. We all love this time of year, and if you're into sports betting or fantasy, you need that competitive edge to win, and that edge is the Elias Game Plan app. Yes, Elias Game Plan is the only sports app from the most trusted name in sports statistics, the Elias Sports Bureau, the official statisticians of the U.S. pro sports leagues, and that includes, of course, the NFL. Their app lets you access team and player stats, head-to-head team comparisons, and Elias insights from the Elias Sports Bureau research team. How about that? Player previews, team previews, injury reports, they've got it all. The Elias insights help me know that my game strategy is backed by numbers, not just my intuition, whether it's putting some money down or getting my fantasy lineup together. Take my advice. Download the Elias Game Plan app today. With new features available all the time, take your game to the next level. NFL season is right here. Don't wait. Find Elias Game Plan in the App Store or Play Store today. As promised today here on Locked On Lions, our buddy from now Pro Football Focus, former alumnus, I guess, or is an alumnus of the Locked On Network, Trevor Sikkema is with us. Trev, great to see you, my friend.
Matt, is always good to be with you, my friend. So appreciate you having me back on the show.
Everybody's talking about the Lions right now, Trevor, and what have you seen from Hard Knocks that you've liked? And I'm sure none of the Dan Campbell stuff is probably surprising to you, right?
No, Hard Knocks is awesome. I remember when I was covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers many years ago now. They had Hard Knocks. I think it was in 2017, 2018, one of those years. And I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was a blast to be a reporter, obviously there on the grounds every single day, covering that team, but then seeing it from a different angle, reliving it when Hard Knocks was there. So any Lions fans who have been at the training camp or anybody covering the team, I'm sure that they're getting that cool experience. But it's great. I mean, all these guys are mic'd up. They're getting so many great moments. I mean, Dan Campbell doing up downs with the team. I was watching the first episode and him doing that. Obviously, the viral moments with Jamal Williams giving the super emotional and impassionate speech after practice that one day. Aiden Hutchinson performing Billie Jean as his little rookie audition, I guess, for the rest of the team, which is a lot of fun to watch. But look, it just kind of goes hand in hand with, it feels like the Lions are the darlings of the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Everyone wants the Lions to win. They want the Lions to succeed. And I know a lot of people at PFF, David Solfaro, Eric Eager, they've been on the restore the roar train.
Eric's insane. He really is. He needs a lot of help.
Eric is willing the Lions to success this year in the stuff that he's putting out there on social media. But it's a lot of fun, and I think that's the really cool part about Hard Knocks is you get to know a lot of these guys, and there's a lot of stories that you love rooting for, and those are kind of everywhere in the NFL, but we don't get to see as much of it in depth as we do when a team is on Hard Knocks. So it's a lot of fun watching these Lions players and getting to learn about a lot of stories that you love to root for.
How much of a distraction would you say, if you recall, when the Bucks were on? How much did it take away from the season, or did it not at all? Do you remember?
No, I remember talking with coaches and some players, and they don't like it. You know, especially the coaching staff. They really don't like it. They don't want, at least it was Dirk Cutter's staff, and it was a really important year for them, and so they were all like really trying to get preseason and training camp right and everything. But it's an added distraction. You know, there's extra cameras around, and so like our guys, you know, goofing around for the camera, you know they're mic'd up, or they're not going to be as focused as they want to be. Are they trying to dramatize what they're doing? Are they not being themselves? These are the things that I think coaches worry about when they're just trying to get their guys ready for football. And there's a reason why there are so many rules for who's going to be on Hard Knocks. And sometimes it feels like Hard Knocks is a punishment, right? I mean, there's so many rules like, okay, well, it can't be a playoff team. It can't be a team that's had it in the past couple of years. So it's not like every team in the NFL is jumping at the chance to have this kind of access that other people are looking for. So it's almost a sign more than anything else. But I do remember, you know, when I was a media member with the Buccaneers, it's not like it was universally loved that they were there. I loved it because, like I said, I got to see even more behind the scenes, even closer look at the team that I was covering, and you get to know a lot of the storylines even better. So it was great for me as a media person, but I know teams aren't always as excited about having the extra cameras there.
I'm going to ask you, you know, last night, specifically on the second episode, really Deuce Staley really jumping on DeAndre Swift a little bit. And you could tell that it's a lot of tough love in terms of they feel Swift has all this talent, but there's just almost something missing there. And I know you and I spoke a few weeks ago, but, you know, what is it about DeAndre Swift? Do you think he can be a top 10 running back, or is there something sort of missing that he'll always be just a pretty good back, maybe 800, 700 yards, but Swift said today 1,000 and 1,000. That's what his goal is, 1,000 rushing, 1,000 receiving yards. Do you think that's something he can do?
Yeah, and that was always the big, I think, allurement of DeAndre Swift, is that he could be that receiver, right? And that was the big draw for him out of Georgia in that really talented running back class. There were a lot of really great backs, obviously guys like Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, like a lot of those guys. And so when you're choosing DeAndre Swift among that group, you're hoping that he brings you that added element of success in the passing game. And you hope that that helps his value overall. Well, guys who have that kind of emphasis, it's really hard for them to have a lot of stats in one or the other column, whether it's rushing or receiving. I mean, what Christian McCaffrey did a couple of years ago, being a 1,000 guy, I mean, that was rare. You looked at that Carolina Panthers team that he was on when he did that, there was nobody really. They leaned on him for everything. And I don't think that's quite the case with the Detroit Lions. Instead, when I look at DeAndre Swift, you know, I look at him and the prototype's got to be Alvin Kamara, right? Because that is the rushing and receiving dual threat ability that he's got to be chasing. And there's plenty of years that Alvin Kamara has not been a 1,000-yard rusher, right? So I hate that benchmark for everybody. It's just not going to be the case. These guys aren't going to get the lion's share of carries that way. So for DeAndre Swift, it is less about the numbers. I know he wants to be a 1,000, and if that's the case, it means that he's incredibly efficient and explosive at what he's doing. But I think that probably a little more realistic goal is 800 and 800, like anywhere around that mark. And you're talking about a really great offensive player for you, a guy who's impacting both the run game and the pass game. And so, look, I think that it's all certainly there for him to bring a lot of value to that position. It's one that's heavily scrutinized. I know PFF especially is on the magazine cover, if you will, for running backs don't matter. And that's not always the case, but we do love when backs can be utilized in the passing game. That's what made DeAndre Swift valuable on draft night, and that's what he just needs to continue to be. He doesn't need to have reckless abandon to make sure that he is this 1,000-yard running back. Make sure that the all-purpose yards are where they need to be, and that he's given value in a lot of different areas.
Trevor Sikkema with us from Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. Lions are in Indy right now. It'll be day 2 tomorrow of these joint practices with the Colts. Do you like these, or is this sort of dangerous territory with all the fighting and, guys want to hit somebody else, obviously?
No, I love them. I love the joint practices, and I feel like you can even get more out of the joint practices with less risk than you do actually playing even preseason games. You play a lot of preseason games, and that's where we see a decent amount of injuries. Not that injuries don't happen on the practice field; they certainly do, but I think that teams get a lot out of these joint practices. I remember, when I was covering the Bucs and I got to see a lot of joint practices, a lot of times that they would practice against the Tennessee Titans and the Miami Dolphins again, like they are this year. It's just familiar foes for them, but it's somebody different. After a couple of weeks of camp, hitting your own guys, you actually get to hit somebody different. You actually get to come together as a team. So instead of just lining up against the other team one day out of the week for a 3-hour period of time, you're going up against these guys, and tempers can flare, and the competitive juices can start to get flowing. And I of course, you don't want things to get out of control when it comes to some of these training camp fights. But I'm telling you, man, they're good. They're good for these players. Like I said, they get the juices flowing. That's what gets the competitive nature. Sometimes in a physical, violent game like you see with football, guys will tell you, sometimes I need to get hit. Like they need to get hit a couple of times to wake up and really get into the best of their abilities. And I think that that's the case with joint practices as well. It's great getting hit and laying some hits on guys that aren't on your team that you feel like you might be hurt. So I really do. I love the joint practices. I think they're a great idea.
I want to ask Trevor about some injury concerns with the Lions and certainly the debut of Aiden Hutchinson. We'll do that coming up next. First, our friends at betonline.net, fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs, and that includes what's going on this week with more preseason football. Fans can't get enough. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games, and that is BetOnline. Find reviews, news of every league, Major League Baseball, we're coming down the stretch here, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and of course, even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. Live in-game betting, scores, podcasts, they've got you covered. It's the best place to go to get the lines, and certainly over-unders. If things change, Lions still sitting at 6.5 wins, all that stuff you find right there for you at BetOnline. BetOnline, where the game starts. Trevor Sikkema is our guest from Pro Football Focus. Has covered this league for a very long time. You were bullish last time we talked about Aiden Hutchinson. He didn't disappoint. High PFF grade 2 for a preseason game. It's tough is it tough to grade those? How involved are you with that? And, when a guy only plays 8, 9, 10 snaps like Aiden did Friday night.
Yeah, it is difficult. I'm not the one plugging in the grades myself, but it is funny. I've done a couple of the just game recaps that we have over at PFF.com, and my editors will tell me, hey, pick out 3 or 4 guys at each position, kind of highlight them one way or the other. I was like, okay, sounds easy. And then you get to the list after the game and you go, all right, well, this guy only played like 6 snaps. Do I really put him in here? Like this guy's playing 32 snaps, but the outlook is so different. And so it's kind of tough to judge preseason. I think preseason, a lot of people go, oh, it doesn't matter. Well, that's not true. The result doesn't matter, but the snaps certainly do. And that's context. There's different contexts for every guy. Some of the starters, you're not going to see them play a ton. You just want them to get out there. You want them to get loose, get the crack of the pads. But then for some of those guys that are both fringe roster guys and players who might be fighting for those reserve or rotational spots, the preseason is really important, and it absolutely matters. And so, for a guy like Aiden Hutchinson to come out right away and just play as confidently as he did, I think is really, really important. And, not to put salt in the wound of Lions fans, but you looked at a high draft pick like Jeff Okudah during his rookie season, and that was no guarantee, right? So there's no need to look at what Aiden Hutchinson did in his first game in the preseason and roll your eyes and think that it doesn't mean anything. It does. Getting that confidence as an NFL player, as a first-time pro, is really, really important, and that carries into the regular season. So I think that was really important for Hutchinson, a guy who won a lot off of physicality and length when he was at Michigan. And those are two things where you get to the NFL, these guys are bigger, faster, stronger than they were in college. And I wasn't worried about Hutchinson really being able to handle it, but for him to kind of come out right away and make a little bit of a statement saying, look, there's not going to be this giant learning curve for me, or at least we certainly hope so moving forward. I think that was really encouraging for a guy that you draft really high and have high expectations of, even in his rookie year.
He's on a D line right now without Romeo Okwara, without Julian Okwara. Josh Pascal's hurt. Levi Onwuzurike's not even with the team right now. He's hurt. Concerns at all about that D line, especially the interior part. Phillies are the week one opponent. And, I read on your website all the time, Eagles rushing offense last year, even with that read option and Jalen Hurts could be trouble in week one. Is that a concern for you?
Yeah, no, I think it has to be. And even just beyond the names, it's the snaps, it's the experience, right? And I think all those guys playing together, gelling together is what makes a good run defense. I think the chemistry is huge there between both the front along the defensive line and then linebackers behind him. How guys move, how guys are trying to anchor and fill each gap. Like, you really start to learn from one another when you get a lot of snaps, and they're just not getting a lot of snaps with each other. And I think that is a problem, because although I do think that we're going to see a little bit more passing from the Philadelphia Eagles this year, I think they're going to open things up for Jalen Hurts. That was one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL last year. So they're going to continue to lean on that. And if you make it easy for them, they're going to continue to go to it. So I think that's very, very important for the Lions to really get that down, especially because it looks like, of course, that Aiden is going to be somebody who's going to have a starting role for them. I'll tell you, when I was watching Hard Knocks, I don't know what Aiden weighs right now, but when I just looked at him, I was like, man, he looks like he's kind of thin. Like
almost like a wide receiver.
He did. He looks like a bigger kind of like wide receiver. And I think they're going to pack some more pounds on him, but how much can you do that between now and the debut? Probably not a lot. It's probably going to be a year-long thing for him, more of something going into next off season that they'll say, hey, we'd like you to probably gain about 5-10 pounds, depending on what he's showing his strengths and weaknesses are. But all that to say, right now, as they're preparing for week one, Aiden looks like he's a little bit light. I mean, that's a heavy, strong offensive line that the Philadelphia Eagles has. And so, yeah, there's no doubt about it. I don't know, a full-blown worry, but it's something that you've got to think about, and definitely an X factor going into that week one game.
Final thing, give me about a minute and a half on the rest of the division. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is not happy with his receivers. Vikings seem to be having a good camp with the new coach. The Bears in this Roquan situation, who knows? But how are you looking at the teams right now here on August 17th? The Lions, most obviously the opponents that they care most about, the two games each year with Green Bay, Chicago, and Minnesota.
Yeah, I thought we were in for a little bit of a Green Bay regression last year. It didn't really happen. Kudos to Matt LaFleur and what he's able to do every single year there. So I still think that Green Bay, it's their division, but I do think they're going to take a little bit of a step back from being damn near unbeatable in the regular season like they have been over the last couple of years. I think there's a realistic possibility that the Lions are not that fourth team in this division. I'm worried about Chicago. I really am. I like Ryan Poles. I like Matt Eberflus, but I'm not sure it's going to come together from a wins perspective this year. And then the Vikings, I think the Vikings are a pretty solidly, just because of the roster around them and the experience that they have, they are that second best team in the division. But I think it's pretty streamlined. I really do. I don't really have much reservation about putting Green Bay at the top of that division. Don't really have much reservation about the Vikings being firmly that second best team. There's a little bit of a flip-flop depending on what the Bears can get out of Justin Fields, but I'm with Eric Eager a little bit. There is reason to believe that the Lions can get out of the cellar of this division, get themselves into third place, and have a really great building block for them moving forward. So that's kind of the way that I see everything shaping out with the division this year.
I don't know. I think Eric is thinking Super Bowl. So
You're right. Eric might be thinking super. Eric might be going a little bit further than me, but I do think that a good year could be in store for the Lions.
there's something in Eric's chili down there in Cincinnati. I don't know. Trev, great to see you, buddy. Thanks so much.
Of course, Matt. Anytime.
Trevor Sikkema with us from Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. We always love visiting with him here on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Lions. We are back again tomorrow.